Hello, it's Shannon here with Waffle Flower Crafts. Today's video is all about matching dies. We will discuss what matching dies are, how to use them, and I will share with you several methods for getting great alignment with your stamped images. Matching dies are dies that are designed to cut out specific stamped images. Most of our stamp sets at Waffle Flower have matching dies. If you purchase a combo set, you will receive the stamp set as well as the matching die in one of our cloud storage packets. When you receive your dies, they will come connected by little metal tabs. To separate them, use wire clippers to cut the tabs, but make sure you wear some eye protection when doing this. I recommend placing the blades of your wire cutters right at the base of the die to remove as much of the tab as possible, thus removing any sharp edges left by the tab. You could even go one step further and use a nail file to sand down the tab completely after cutting. To prevent the trim tabs from going all over the place, you can try closing your hand around the die and the wire cutter while you are cutting. Now that our matching dies are separated, let's use them to cut out a stamped image. To stamp, simply take the stamp off the acetate, place it impression side down, pick it up with an acrylic block, then ink it up, and then stamp it. Once the stamp has touched the paper, I like to hold the stamp in place and then gently press over the stamp to make sure the entire image transfers. Now we will align the matching die to this image. First I'll flip the die over so it is blade side down. Then I'll grab some low-tack tape, which I will use to hold the die in place once I get it aligned. Today I'll use purple tape, but micropore tape or washi tape will also work. I will then rip a couple pieces off and place them to the side so I can easily grab them when ready. When I'm aligning, I pay close attention to the exterior edge of the stamped image. I make sure that the line is equally visible from every point within the die. Once the die is aligned, I'll place tape on the die and the paper to hold it in place. I try to avoid placing any tape on the image itself. I do this to avoid impressions of the tape being made into the image and to avoid possible tearing if the tape sticks. I'll then add the paper and die to my die cutting sandwich and run it through my die cutting machine. As you can see, the die cut just pops right out of the die and the die has perfectly cut around our stamped image. Now because dies are pressed into the paper to cut, the die will leave a beveled edge around the die cut. I did not stamp on this die cut, so you can hopefully see the beveled edge. Personally, I love the beveled edge. I believe it has a very professional, clean look, and it adds a small amount of dimension to my images. However, you may not like this look, so I will now show you how to remove the beveled edge. To remove, simply use a scoring tool or bone folder to flatten the edge. Do this by running the tool over the edges of the die cut on both sides. This will flatten the die cut and completely remove the impression of the die. Now let's move on to some alignment tips. Some spindly stamps, like flower stems, balloon strings, or even paintbrush handles, like you see here on our little painter's stamp set, can be difficult to align with the matching dies. This is because it is very easy to contort the stamp when you are mounting it onto your acrylic block. This of course will create a bent image that will not align properly with the matching die. One way to avoid this is to die cut first, then align your stamp to the die cut. Once the stamp is perfectly aligned, then pick it up with your acrylic block. I like to then tape the negative to my work surface to hold the die in place when I stamp. When stamping, I look through the acrylic block to make sure the image is aligned with the die cut, and there is a thin, even gap between the image and the edge of the die cut before I press down. As you can see, this trick of lining our stamp to the die cut really helped us to get a great alignment on the handle. Now let me show you a second way to align those spindly stamps. I even found this method a little bit easier. This time, instead of lining the stamp to the die cut, we'll align the stamp to the actual die. I actually found it much easier to align the stamp to the die rather than the die cut. Once the two are aligned, pick up the stamp with an acrylic block, then remove the die, and then stamp. Once again, we got great alignment with this method as well. Now let's move on to my favorite way to stamp spindly stamps, and that is with a stamp positioning tool like this Misty. The Misty has a hinge, which is wonderful for precision stamping and allows me to mass produce my images as well. To start, first die cut with the matching die your chosen image. Then mount the cardstock negative into the corner of your Misty. I like to flip my Misty mousepad over so I have a dark surface. Then align the stamp in the negative. The contrast of the dark surface makes it easier for me to position the stamp. Another helpful tip is to make sure the cardstock you die cut from has at least one 90-degree corner for you to align snugly into one of the corners of your Misty. Once the stamp is positioned, fold the Misty over to pick up the stamp. Then pop the die cut into the negative, then ink up the stamp, and stamp. I'll now use some tweezers just to help me get the die out of the negative, and as you can see, once again we have a perfectly stamped die cut. The best part is, if I needed several more of these brushes, all I need to do is die cut them out, then simply pop them into the Misty, ink it up, and then stamp. The last positioning trick I'm going to share with you can be really handy if you find it challenging to position your stamp in the methods I previously shared. To start, nestle your cardstock into one of the corners of your Misty. Then position your stamp on the cardstock. Give your stamp plenty of space. Don't position it too close to the edges of the Misty. Then fold your Misty over, pick up the stamp, ink it up, and then stamp. Next, die cut some cardstock with the matching die. Then trim around the negative and then place it in the Misty, but align it according to the stamped image. Out of all four methods, this is the easiest to align. But because this involves an extra step, which is stamping out the image first, I typically use the last method I shared earlier. Once I got the negative positioned, I then used some tape to hold it in place. Now I'll simply pop the die cut into the negative. Sometimes I like to straighten the die cut with my fingers to help it lay flat. With the die cut in place, I will then ink up the stamp and then stamp. Once again, another perfectly stamped die cut. And just like the previous method, this setup also works well for mass production. And that's it. I hope you found this video on matching dies and the alignment tips and tricks I shared helpful. If you want any more info on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.